Hello game designers, this is Mr. Sparks, and we are going to continue our SideScroll project. So the first thing we need to do, we kind of left off, we just have our character running back and forth, and one thing that we do have a problem with is that we have to actually click before we can actually move a character. So we're going to fix that part there first. So if you want to go and open up your game mode blueprint, and I've already got mine open. If you get this screen right here that gives you the open the full blueprint editor, then you'll want to click this little link right here, and that will open up the event graph and everything like that that we're going to need. And so what we're going to do is under event begin play, we're going to create in here, we're going to create a function. We're going to actually create a couple of functions in here to handle our character spawning. So we're going to add some additional spawning points so that we'll randomly select those and possess our character. And so the first thing that we're going to need to do before we get any further is to, over here on the right hand side, if you make sure you've got class defaults selected, then we're going to go here into the default pawn class, and we've selected character base. Instead of that, we're going to click and we're going to choose none, and that will set us up to where we don't have a character by default. So we're going to create a character select process a little in a future lesson here, but right now what we're going to do is we are going to create a function called possess selected character. So if you remember, functions are right here on the left hand side. So if we click function, we're going to say possess selected character. Okay, and we're going to need one input. So we're going to go here, click the input plus, adds as an input here. We're going to call this selected character. Oops. Don't need that little slash. Okay, and the type, and since we have a base character and everything's going to be based off of him, I'm going to say base character, and we want to choose the class reference. Okay, so that'll give us an option. We're not going to really use this right now. You want to go ahead and compile this first, and since we have our selected character there input, we'll be plugging information into that at a later time. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we're going to go ahead and get all of our we're going to do a function called get all actors of class. So we want this one here, get all actors of class. This will get all actors of a particular class that is in our level. So we want to choose the player start, which should be this blue one here. It looks like the little controller. So it says player start, just player start. That's what we want. This will create an array of all the player starts on the level. Right now we only have one. We're going to be adding a few extra ones so that it will just randomly pick one for us and spawn our character at that location. So here at our out actors, this is an array output option here. So we're going to drag off of here, and we're going to say get. So we're going to get a copy. So it's going to choose one, and you notice it says index 0. So that will be the first one in this particular array. So we need to do a random. So we're going to drag back from here. I'm going to say random int, and we want random int in range. Okay, so it's going to be 0 is the first one, and depending on how many we have, we don't know how many we're going to have. We may have a few, we may decide to add more, take away a few. So we're going to do this so that it always works no matter how many we add or subtract. So we just drag back from the out actors again and say last index. Okay, plug that into the max right here. All right, once we do that, we are going to come from this pin right here, and we're going to say spawn actor from class. So we're going to do spawn actor from class, and we're going to choose, right now we're going to choose the base character so that it does spawn our character base here. And we're going to need a transform. So what we need to do is we need to take from actors of class, and let's organize this a little bit better. Like this. Okay, we're going to get the transform where this is in the world. So the easy way to drag off of this and say get world. Let's try. So transform. So let's say get. We can get the actor transform. That's what we need right there. Okay, so get actor transform. And you'll notice we have an output pin that's orange. Should plug straight into there. Okay. Well, we can move this over and make it line up a little better. Okay, so we're going to spawn our character base wherever this particular player start that it selects is in the world. Okay, so we'll scroll on over it. Now, normally when we finish our select screen, we would actually take this pin here and we would plug it in here, but we'll wait until we set that up, and then we'll come back in and fix this one. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we need to be able to possess this character now. So the way you do that is you're going to right click and say get player controller. So the very top one there. And from there, we're going to say possess. So we want to possess this character. So this will be the end pawn. Okay. So our controller now, which is us, should be able to possess the target or the pawn, which is this character here. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to say drag off of this pin again. We're going to go a couple more nodes. We're going to say input, and we want to say input mode game only. That will prevent us from having to click the mouse or anything like that to start to be able to move our character. And the last thing we'll do in this function is we'll say show mouse cursor. So we're going to set show mouse cursor and plug this in at the end, and we'll leave this at false. What that will do is that will, if the cursor happens to be on the screen, it will remove it for us. Okay, and finally we'll add our return node, and now that should finish this. So we're going to possess the selected character, get all actors of class, get one of those, randomly select it from a random integer, anywhere from the first one to the last index, get that actor's transform, and spawn our character base at that location there. And then we'll get our player controller, possess that character, set our input mode to game only, take our mouse cursor off the screen, and finally stop the execution of this function. So go ahead and hit compile. Go out to your event graph here. We can get rid of the event tick. We won't need that. So here at our begin play, we can just simply drag our possess selected character out here and plug that in. Okay, we don't really need to do anything here. We'll use this at a different location in our HUD character select menu. Whenever we create that, we'll actually be plugging that in there and use that function there. Okay, so what we should see now, let's go and test it to make sure it works. Sometimes it will not function the first time you use it, but we should spawn right here, and we can hit play, and there's my character, and sure enough, I'm able to immediately start working. So let's go ahead and add a few more. And the easy way to make additional player starts is just select this one, and if you hold the Alt key down and drag with this green pen, I can drag this up, and we'll drag this actually over and press end. And I'm actually going to bring this one over slightly. Okay, so that'll give me two options here. So now it has two to choose from, so I'm going to go ahead and do one more for now. You can do as many of these as you like, place them wherever you would like to. Just take them up above the surface you want, and then just hit the end key to bring them down. Okay, we can maybe even do one more final one, so that'll give us 4. We'll put one over here. Alright, so now when we hit play, it will choose one of these 4. So in this case, we are now spawned in this particular location again. So let's try it again. So now we spawned, it chose a different one, so we spawned up here, and that's pretty much what we were looking for. Okay, so we know that that function is now correctly working. So what we want to do next is in here we're going to create a respawning system, and this will be a little bit of work, fairly complex in some ways, but before we do that, we're going to go ahead and jump out of here and go back to your main screen here to where your blueprints game modes are. So we're going to create a game instance to track our players' lives. That's the easiest and best way to take care of that. So we're going to go out here right beside of our my game mode, and we're going to say right click, and we're going to go blueprint class, and we're going to go to all classes down here, expand that down. In our search box we're going to say game instance, and we want this top option here, so game instance, and select that, and we'll just call this my game. Well, it's saved on me. My game instance. Okay, and before we do anything in here, just to make sure that this works properly, you need to go up here to your settings and open up your project settings. And now that it opens up, we'll go to the maps and modes here, and down here at the bottom where it says game instance, we're going to switch that to the one we just created called my game instance. Okay, do that. You can close this out, and now we can open it up and we can go ahead and start working with it. Okay, so the one thing we're going to do is over here we're going to need a couple of variables and a couple of functions. So we're going to create first variable. We're going to say player lives. We're going to make that an integer, and then we're going to create another one called max lives. It's also an integer, so let's go ahead and compile. We'll give our character a default player lives value of 3 and a max lives value of 5. So that'll give us a little bit of a leeway there. Okay, so the first function that we're going to create, these are very similar, so they're going to be pretty much the same. One's going to subtract, one's going to add. So we're going to go to functions here, create a new one. We're going to call this reduce player lives. Okay, so reduce player lives is going to be very simply, we're going to take player lives here, we're going to set it, plug this in, we're going to get player lives so we know what it is first, then we're just going to say minus, so we're going integer minus integer, so we're going to say -1. So we're going to take one life away each time. Just to be safe, we'll clamp this. So we'll clamp that to a minimum of 0, plug that in, and we'll take our max lives and we'll plug that in there for the max, so that we don't automatically get 1. Okay, and once we're done with that, simply do return. So we'll add a return node. Okay, now I'm going to do something really quickly so it makes it a lot faster. So we're just going to copy all this here. Okay, except, so we can hold control and we can deselect that one. And I'm just going to press Control C. Okay, and I'm going to create a new function called add player lives. And hopefully I can just hit Control V as in Victor. Okay, and we already have these in here for us. Plug that in. The only thing we need to do here is say player lives plus. So we can say integer plus integer, leave that at 1, plug that into the value. Saves ourselves a little bit of time. And then we'll go return. So we'll add a return node. Okay, so that's pretty much all we need to do in the game instance. So we can compile that. And we'll go ahead and close it out. Okay, so back here in our game mode, we're going to start to set up a respawning system. So we're going to do it inside our game mode here. So we're going to create a custom event right below where we're at right here. We're going to say, right click, say custom event, and we'll call this respawn. Okay, so respawn. And the first thing we want to do is we're going to create a variable in here called player last location. Okay, we're going to make that a vector. Okay, so that'll be a vector value. So what I want to do, just so I can have a visual, and we may use something different, but we're going to go off of here. We're going to say spawn spawn emitter at location. Finally found it. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to choose the explosion, which is included in the starter pack content. So the location, we're going to take our player last location, we'll plug that in, and we'll set this over in the player in our damage function. So we can go ahead and let's change the scale, make it a little bigger. Let's go 2, 2, 2. This will make this explosion just slightly bigger. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to create a branch over here. So we want to check to see, before we respawn, we'll see, do we have any lives left? So we handled that in our game instance. So we're going to come right here. We're going to say get game instance. So we're going to go over and ask this blueprint, does our character have any lives left? Okay, so we're going to go there, and once we do this, we've got to cast to my game instance. Okay, and to avoid these execution pins, we're going to say, we're going to right click on it and convert this to a pure cast. So now we don't have the execution pins, we can just pull the information from it. And from here, we're going to get player lives. Okay. That's a lot, so I'm just going to stack these a little easier, so it's a little less room. Okay, and we're just going to say, is this greater than integer, greater than integer? We'll leave it at 0. So here's our player lives greater than 0. Okay, if it is false, at this point we're just going to say quit. We're going to do a quit game. Okay, so that takes care of the false branch. Alright, so off of our true branch, this is where most of our work is going to come in, is we're going to say, we're going to say here, delay. Okay, so we're going to delay for about 2 seconds. Okay, and once we do that, we're going to say get player character. So about 2 seconds, we're going to say destroy actor. Okay. So after our character, we have our delay, we're going to destroy the actor. Okay. And once we do that, we should be able to go ahead and call our possess selected character function. So that's all the work we did in here is basically the same thing we have to do after that. So there's no real point in redoing all that. Okay. Now, so that should take care of that. This is already the character's already taken care of in there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over here to our player base. So jump over to your character base. If you don't have it opened up, just kind of jump over here to your character blueprint. Double click that, open this up, and we're going to go back into this player damage function, which I have up here already. So we're going to go in here, and so far we have this. We have our player damage, and all we have right now is we're just taking away some health. Okay. So the next thing we want to do, we can get rid of this print string now, and let's move a return node over. And so the next thing we want to do is a branch check. Okay, so we're going to do a branch check. And all we're going to check to see is, open our player stats category, is our health equal, so equal float, is our health equal to 0? Okay, if it is not, we can bring this return node back, plug it into false. Okay, so if our health is not equal to 0, it means we still have health. We'll just continue the game. Okay, we've already done what we need to do. So what we want to do next is here in the branch off of true, we're going to get our game mode. So we're going to get game mode. And then we're going to cast to our game mode. So cast to my game mode. Plug that into true. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say set player last location. So we want to know where our player's last location. So here's where we're actually going to set that variable. Okay. And as for the location here, we're just going to go right above here and say right click, say get actor location. So we're going to get our actor, which is self, which is our base character's current location. We're going to set that variable to that particular location so it will know here, back in our game mode, this is where it's going to spawn that explosion. Okay, so that takes care of that part. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to, as we go here, we're going to, let's see, we need a sequence. So we'll need a sequence node. This will let things run in sequence. So after this, we're going to say we're going to say stop movement immediately. I believe this was what we need to do so our character doesn't move around anymore. Okay, and then we're going to say set actor hidden in game. So we want to hide our character because it's going to be about 2 seconds, and you want to make sure you check this box here. So we're going to do this first thing first, and then we'll come down here and we'll do this. Okay. All right. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to say get our game instance. So we should have lost a life. So we're going to say cast to my game instance. We'll plug this in here. And from there, we're going to run our function called reduce player lives. Okay, so this will take away one of our players' lives. Okay, and then once we do that, we can, from here, we're just going to drag us another pin out here, and we're going to say respawn. Okay, so respawn will go there. And so we can see this a little better. We can just kind of reroute these, double click those lines. That'll give you a reroute node, make that a little easier to see. Okay, and so once we have that done, this will be pretty much all we need to do. We can say return, because this will be the last thing in our sequence, and this is pretty much what we need to do. So all this goes in here: get game instance, cast my game instance, reduce our player lives, then click our, then do a respawn. The respawn is going to check to see if we have any lives or not, and this will stop our character from moving, and it will set it hidden in game. So let's try that and see if this works. So we'll cross our fingers. So we got our character right here. We're moving around. We're going to see, we're going to take our health and see what happens. Okay, so our character disappeared, and now we're back. So yes, let's see, let's try one more time. Oops. Got it up here. Press H however many times. There it is. We'll respawn somewhere else. So that is working the way we intend it to. So we're going to kind of finish this video here. The next videos we'll kind of start working on adding a health bar over top of our character's head and program that in. and create some actor blueprints to be able to add some keys and doors and things like that we'll be using in the future. So that's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.